What if your best years are still ahead of you? If you're 25, you're supposed to wait your turn, put in the 10,000 hours. You're smart, but you haven't done much yet. If you're 55, you're supposed to manage your decline. You've got judgment, pattern recognition, experience, but you're not as fast as you used to be. Now, these findings are real, and science confirms them. But what happens when AI unlocks ageless peak performance? Not AI as a replacement for your judgment, AI as a cognitive tool that retrieves instantly from the sum of human knowledge, processes in parallel, never tires, never forgets. If you're 25, AI scaffolds your experience that you don't have yet. It lets you perform like somebody with 20 years more pattern recognition. Now, if you're 55, AI makes up the difference for where you have slowed down. You've got the judgment. It's at its peak, and now your execution can keep up. At any age, AI is your thought partner and best assistant. Together, your performance peak becomes a plateau. Now, let me show you what I mean. In order to become an Italian citizen, thanks to my Italian wife, I needed to take a language test at the B1 intermediate level. Now, this is across reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Now, starting from scratch, this is about 400 hours of study. I was over 45, and according to science, my brain was way past its language learning prime. So I didn't take a traditional class, and I didn't use an app. I used AI to teach me Italian using structured drills tailored at exactly my level. When something was too easy, it increased the difficulty. And when I struggled, it retaught me the same concept in a different way. Now, for the hardest parts, writing and speaking, I fed practice exams into AI, and AI then scored my responses using exactly the same rubric as the actual test. I was able now to practice dozens of times, and each time I got specific feedback on how to improve. AI was my infinitely patient tutor. It never was annoyed when I forgot how to conjugate my verbs, and it was available at any time. Ho superato l'esame e sono diventato un cittadino italiano. And here I am, an Italian in Italy. Thank you. And thanks to my AI partner. But this wasn't the test that really mattered to me. The test that was most important to me was speaking to my own son. My son has autism, and communication is difficult for him and for me as his father. And we needed to have a really hard conversation about his future. What happened after high school, college, independence? These are difficult topics for any parent and child, but for us, they're harder. And I didn't know where to start, so I put it off. Every time I thought about starting, I'd stop. I was too busy. He wasn't ready. Really, I wasn't ready. And so I needed to learn more about the subject. And so I put together a virtual panel. I asked AI to model the perspectives of a developmental psychologist, a transition specialist, a vocational counselor, and more. Now, some of these people we had already been speaking to, but never all together. I asked the panel, what am I missing here? What should I be thinking about that I'm not? And one insight came back clearly. The panel suggested that before Daniel could help plan his future, he needed to know more about his own condition. He needed to learn how to advocate for himself. I had been so caught up in logistics with my engineer's brain that I missed something about my own son. This was not about programs or schools. This was about identity. I then used AI to prepare for the actual conversation. I role-played different approaches, different phrasings. I asked AI to model how Daniel might respond, given what we know about how he processes information. Now, open-ended concepts like independence shut him down. But if you tied it to specific scenarios, that would open him up. Specific questions worked. Open-ended questions didn't. We sat down at the kitchen table. I started to tell him the story of someone who was 35, who still lived at home, and who never learned how to manage his own life. And Daniel got quiet. And then he said, I don't want to be like that. The rest of the conversation wasn't easy, but it was better than if I had gone in alone. Now, AI helped me show up as a better father, but it didn't speak to my son. I did. Putting together experiences like these, I have built a playbook for how to perform at your best with AI. Now, I am not a researcher. I am an engineer, and I had a problem to solve. The Italian test, the conversation with Daniel, these came out of a playbook with 4 principles and 5 superpowers. So let's go through each of the principles at a high level. Number 1, treat AI like an intern and not an oracle. AI is eager, it's capable, and it will very happily give you a completely wrong answer. Those lawyers that were sanctioned for citing cases that didn't exist, they treated AI like an oracle. Don't do that. 2, aim first and then accelerate. The AI goes rapidly towards whatever you pointed at. So that means if you aim wrong, you will very quickly get to a wrong answer. Crawl, walk, run instead. 3, make AI flow. When you are using AI at its best, it disappears. You're not thinking about prompts or interfaces. You're just performing at a higher level, the same way a professional athlete or a musician does. And finally, 4, keep your judgment at the center. AI retrieves, it processes, it suggests, but you decide, always. The minute you outsource your brain is the minute you lose the game. Now, without principles, even experienced AI users can go wrong. For a study, researchers gave coders with decades of open source experiments real-world tasks. Now, these coders, they used AI tools, and they actually performed 19% slower. But when asked, they thought that they had performed 20% faster. Now, that is a 40% perception gap by experts who systemically overestimated their own productivity. Now, why? Now, I believe it is because they never learned to use AI as a cognitive tool. They fought it. They never trusted it enough to reach flow, and they used it without proper aim. I made the same mistakes when I was starting with AI. I spent more time arguing with it than using it, or I sped up the wrong thing. Now, it felt productive, but it wasn't. Now, used correctly, The 4 principles unlock 5 superpowers. And these are TEDx execution, strategic clarity, orchestrated life, enhanced connection, and learn anything. Now, I'm not going to go through the superpowers right now because that is what my book is for. But for the conversation with Daniel, I used enhanced connection. And for the Italian test, I used learn anything. Now, this isn't just about individuals doing their best with AI. Teams, too, can perform at their peak. Now, I run a local media outlet called Daily Voice. And we have senior reporters that have dozens of years of experience, decades. And we have people just starting their career. We have led our team through an AI transformation by giving them the tools, the rules, and the guidelines. But one reporter, and I'll call him Ernie, resisted. Now, Ernie had those decades of experience, and he felt he didn't need AI to help him do his best, to help him do his job. And so we said, fine, so long as you can keep up, you don't have to use it. Okay, so Ernie watched every day as his peers wrote better stories faster. He saw it in the metrics. And eventually, he asked a colleague to show him how. The AI, it didn't replace his experience. It amplified it. Our veterans use AI to stay sharp, to keep up with colleagues that grew up digital. And our newbies, they use AI to punch above their weight, to write with the authority and judgment that they have not yet fully earned. Now imagine that across your entire organization. Your most experienced people, their judgment, their pattern recognition, their connections, performing at their best for another 20 or 30 years. And your young people coming up to speed faster, contributing sooner, and making fewer mistakes. That is collective peak performance. Now, I started with a question. What if your best years are still ahead of you? Well, now you have a tool that makes this possible. Throughout human history, we have used tools to extend our capabilities. Writing extended memory. Calculators extended computation. AI extends cognition itself. Retrieval, processing, pattern matching. This is just the next chapter in a very old story. But Socrates, he worried that writing would erode our memories. And professors, they banned calculators as cheating. Every generation has been afraid that the tools would weaken us. And every generation has been wrong. The tools don't weaken us. They free us to do what only humans can do best. Judge, create, connect, and decide. Your best years aren't behind you. They are ahead of you. Starting now, if you have the courage to reach for ageless peak performance. Thank you.